Time podcast where we talk about anime, manga, light novels, and how Kyle fucking sucks at making intros.
Hey! In this one, special guest appearance of Zack Rakes, Mr. General Tofu on the site. How are you doing, Zack?
I'm here.
Cool.
That is true.
Yeah.
So in this one, we were thinking of doing something a little bit different because we wanted to do a short one, and also on top of that, I have my OBS open. The fuck am I doing? In this one, we wanted to talk about a recent article that we saw on Darksage's page of why fansubbing is completely irrelevant now, which kind of all took us for a surprise. So, Matt, as our go-to person for fansubbing, because you were in a group, can you tell us like a little bit about fansubbing and its history real quick?
Yeah, I guess I can do that. Maybe, if you want me to.
I do so deeply.
I mean, where do I start? Fansubbing is a thing that people do. Like, I mean,
when did it start and why did it start?
Well, it started way back. Like, almost when anime first started, because, you know, it was the stuff that we, the shows that, like, that basically that we in America got a hold of, like, obviously we couldn't watch the material because it's in another language, and
unless we knew
so
the language.
Yeah, unless at that point wasn't a problem, but like, yeah, like, and so you have to sub it in English if you wanted to consume that content, and the versions in America at that point in time were very localized and very, like, just imagine 4 kids. Yeah, that's kind of how it was.
That's the best example. It's
it really
just
is the best example.
It's like a whole bunch of censorship for no reason, just because they wanted to adhere it to kids, and then on top of that, it's just bad translation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, and so therefore the fans kind of took it in their own hands and were like, hey, we can do this, you know, we can do a better job than them, and we can at least have the full content and in some kind of English coherency that doesn't sound freaking dumb. So, and I mean, that's kind of how it started. And I mean, it's gone through several evolutions since then, but that's where it began.
So, in the modern evolution of fansubbing, I guess the big thing that fansubbing wants to compete with now is that we actually have, like, legitimate licenses for stuff with, like, Crunchyroll and Funimation. And these licenses, they do all their own translations and actually do all the distribution themselves, where originally it was just a whole bunch of people that were just putting files on the internet and letting people download them. In this one, because this is what the article that Darksage was talking about, why does Darksage specifically would think that fansubbing is now irrelevant?
Why does he think it's irrelevant?
Yeah, just basically a summary of, like, the first part of that article.
Basically, I mean, the reason it's relevant is because there used to be a lot of shows that weren't done, obviously, by those simulcasting groups, and similar to the history, basically shows didn't have a translation and people wanted to watch the shows, therefore people did them. But now it's not really irrelevant because, I mean, simulcasting pretty much picks up every single show. Like, Funimation and Crunchyroll literally have a hold of almost every show in the season. Like, I mean, minus, like, you know, maybe not even, like, maybe a 10th, maybe not even that. So, and basically nobody, everyone just goes to them for the subs now, because, I mean, there's so many reasons why they go to them, but, like, I mean, they're good enough. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just one of the main reasons he talks about is that since the simulcast and everything get them out there first, people don't really care to wait for other fan subgroups to do different or better translations, things of that nature.
Yeah.
It's more of an instant gratification thing.
Yeah, it's in this technology, in the information age, where it's just like, I want it and I want it now. They're just like, all right, it's out now. So they don't want to wait for a quality product when they could just easily get it.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And-
oh no, you keep going.
Oh, yeah, and I mean basically that's the reason why he says it's irrelevant, is because like it's slower and basically nobody gives a shit. Like, I mean, that's really what it boils down to.
Yeah.
So, why is it that we would have a problem with this assumption then?
Well, there's a lot of reasons why obviously I would have a problem with it, but like,
Given that you are a fansubber.
and it's like, I mean, there's very, yeah, this is the music for the moment. But
That was a beautiful, very somber piece.
anyway, yeah, like, it's just like he's not looking at it from I think his perspective is off. And that's when, like, I read this article, and I could tell by reading this article that, yeah, sometimes he makes some good points, but there are a lot of points in this article that are either, I don't want to say they're wrong, because they're technically not, but they're definitely either misstated or could be easily misinterpreted as something else. And a lot of the stuff that he says is relevant, but not in the right way. And I think, sorry, what was the original question?
So problems that we have with this actual article. It's like, for instance, a few things that he says is that there's not really much of a need for fansubbing, because where fansubbing was the way in order to get content, now it's not, because we have legal options.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you and I had actually talked about that. Really, the state of fansubbing has actually changed a little bit, and that it's not so much about having access or availability to these wonderful anime from across the pond on the Pacific Coast, but it's now that we're delivering a quality product rather than something that's really shitty.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's where the fan subs are really basically striving right now, because, like, I mean, they release quality products. Simulcasting doesn't have, either they don't have the resources or they don't want to put in the time, or, I mean, there's probably a lot of reasons why they can't, like, hold up to the standards that fan subbers have.
Well, and I mean, like, when you're the legal source for these things, and every other resource is technically illegal, then, you can basically put out whatever you want and basically say, this is what you're getting.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have no competition, therefore you have a monopoly on everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it's also funny that happens, because I've seen some of the advertisements that they actually have specifically for people that are in the know and know about stuff. And, like, there was some advertisements on, like, Rooster Teeth's podcast where it was Crunchyroll, and Crunchyroll specifically called out fan subs and said that they're shit and that their quality is terrible, and that so you shouldn't get them. And the only reason they're allowed to do this is because fan subs are an illegal activity. They're not an actual company, so they can say whatever the fuck they want. And the law's like, yeah, they're not an actual company. You can lie as much as you want.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to drive more people away.
Yeah. Not only that, a lot of people, like, I mean, most of the normal, like, most of the people that watch anime on these websites are not going to really know about subtitle quality. They're just going to assume that, hey, this is the official material now, and they're not going to think twice about the translation being wrong. They're just gonna, they might watch a show and be like, I didn't really like that show very much, and then, like, but they won't know why. They think they'll just attribute it to the show or like to some other aspect. Most people won't even realize that the subtitling aspect is even a player in this game. Like, so people just download that and they're like, hey, this is the material, this is the content, and there's no reason why, the subtitles would be like, they don't even think that the subtitling would play a part in their interpretation.
Oh, I'm covering your face. Okay, there we go. Yeah, and I think a great example of like how subtitles can play a massive part is that I don't know if we showed you this, Zach, but recently somebody was subtitling Unlimited Blade Works.
Oh God.
And Matt, what was the name of that they titled
sorry, it was Unlimited Blaze Works.
Unlimited Blaze Works. I'm gonna see if I can actually find it because it was so great. But basically, what it was is that they took the show and basically kept the script kind of sort of what it was, but they just made it so amazing. Let's see. Yeah, it says smoke/weed every night. Unlimited Blaze Works.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'm trying to think.
And basically, and this is kind of interesting. This particular example is interesting because this took a show with literally they basically just edited it and it can completely change your perception of the show because I mean in this copy, like it was almost normal except that like they would talk like imagine two drug dealers.
Yeah, like
Can you imagine that?
this
like,
line that just popped up on my screen. It says, "Other sauces don't belong on rice with the gratin yams, motherfucker. Especially not oyster sauce." I'm like, what? They're just sitting at the dinner table eating. That's all it is.
And I mean, and
I switched the labels on the bottles earlier, player. Got you good.
And I mean, and most people though, like if they saw this, they would just be like, "This is obviously wrong." Like, I mean,
Your ass had it coming.
and I mean, obviously you can look at this and be like, "Yeah, that's not how the show's supposed to go." But then there's also examples that are like borderline though. Like, for example, like you could look at a Crunchyroll line that may say something like, I don't know where everyone is. And then, like, a fan subber might actually say something like, I don't know where she is. Like, I mean, the nuance is different, and it's so subtle that you might not get it. But, like, it might be relevant to the show, and that does affect your interpretation, whether you know it or not.
Well, it's like if it's a
matter.
specific scene about something romantic, there's a difference between saying, I don't know where everyone is, and I don't know where she is. It's like there's more of an emphasis on, like, oh gosh, he's madly in love with her, and he might not be. They just might be friends or something.
Yeah. And it can completely change the perception of the show. And I think a lot of people may not understand that.
So let me ask you this, Matt, on that same subject, because you brought it up last night. You posed the question, what was the difference between, what makes Funimation or Crunchyroll legitimate compared to fan subs?
Right. And this is really interesting because after I watched that video, I basically came up with this question because we talked a lot about translations, and basically it comes to it. I thought about this after working in this fan subgroup for a while, and like it's just like when you see a translation script, like they have like all the kanji there of the anime in front of them, and they just translate it. And I mean, I assume that like, and this is the only way it's possible, is that like you have like Crunchyroll gets a hold of the same kanji sheet or whatever of the show or the script basically in Japanese, and they have to translate it themselves. So my question really came about because you've got two different translators. They're obviously going to translate differently because every translator is going to translate differently, but like they're doing the exact same job. What makes Crunchyroll's version official and what makes this version not official? Because
Licensing.
Right.
Exactly.
The only thing that makes it official is that money changed hands.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a great point, just because, like, especially when it comes to, as we were saying, there's quality in a lot of fan subs. Like, the license, if everybody's going to go with the licensed product and it's terrible and it does a disservice to the show, that's a major problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll even give it to like Crunchyroll, because they're more consistent about it than Funimation. But I mean, there are some times where you can watch their show and you can be like, that was a good, like they did a good job. They did the service to the show, well. And like sometimes they do have good translations. I'll admit that their editing's really boring, but but I mean, they do a good job. Like, you could watch them and be like, okay, that was all right. Like, but that's not consistent. That's the problem, is that literally they can change from show to show. They obviously have different staff for each show. And it's literally like, I mean, literally they can do perfect on one show and then the next show they can completely flub. And I mean, people just think, oh, because they did this one show perfectly, all the stuff's going to be perfect. Like, it doesn't work like that.
So there's not really much of a QC whenever it comes to that. Just somebody to check the quality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
And
something
I mean,
that fansubbing has.
Yeah. And I mean, you could argue that fansubbing has, they're not on deadlines. And that's an argument that a lot of people bring up, is that fansubbing doesn't have deadlines. They can release whenever they want. They can release, one day after it comes out. They can release 3.5 years after something comes out, FFF. But like, I mean, but the quality, like, and obviously time isn't a factor in quality, because the thing that could be released one day after it airs can be the same quality as 3.5 years down the line. But I don't really think, like, I think it matters in terms of like the time frame. I think that does matter, because I mean, Crunchyroll obviously is on a deadline. They have to get things done so fast, and so people are rushing through their jobs. They don't have time to check whatever, but at the same time, I think they should. Like, I think that's a disservice to the show, and it's a disservice to your job.
Bless you. Jeez.
Gesundheit.
Somebody off camera just went crazy. So in this actual article that Darksage wrote, he specifically pointed out that there's a lot of things that Crunchyroll does right, and that the reason that they're doing that right is that fansubbing is starting to become irrelevant, because fansubbing itself is a community, and it's an illegal community. So and they're having a lot of problems within the actual community. So like, there's a lot of fan subgroups that like fight each other for a lot of things, and I think that's kind of a problem. Just because, like, if you're going to go up against Crunchyroll, which is what they really need to do, you kind of have to have at least a unified position. Like 1940s mafia meeting of all the head mafia bosses, where they're like, all right, we need to make sure our drugs don't go to the playgrounds and the kids. But other than that, we need to all join together. Another like modern actual legal thing would be like, look at your internet service providers. It's like, that's what they do. They all meet up in a room and they're like, all right, we're not going to step on each other's toes, and we're all going to benefit if we work together, at least in some small way. We don't have to agree on everything, but at least work together in some small ways.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And well, sorry, you go.
Oh no, you go ahead. It's fine.
Okay. I think that there should be some community camaraderie there, just because if fansubbing fails, there's really no one that's going to scream at Crunchyroll and Funimation saying what you're doing is kind of wrong. There's not going to be most likely a Google Fiber that's just going to come out of nowhere and force them to change. So it's really has to be a community thing where like fansubbing has to be vocal. And they have to open up to not just the people within fansubbing, but the general people who watch anime, and say, listen, you should go with us because our shit's great. And if they did that, and they did it enough that they were hurting the sales of these companies, they'll probably try to do legal action, but at the same time, they'd probably also force them to improve the quality. At least that's my thinking.
I can see how you could say that in a way, but I still think it kind of falls back to the fact that, these are the official outlets, and like you said before, there's no legal competition. So the threat of potential legal action could probably still keep them in the position of, well, this is what you're getting. Sorry.
I guess so.
That's just
Yeah, I think if the community itself was also more on the side of fan subbing, it would harm their sales enough. Like, because whenever a company's hurting on money, that's when they're going to change. And so it's like, if it was a huge community thing of everybody in America and basically across the world that gets that has to deal with this licensed bullshit, it's like all they have to do is just get together and be like, listen, and call them out on it. Just be like, listen, it's shit. And actually don't watch it with those legal licensed people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would help.
I mean, and I have 2 points I want to elaborate on here. One, the point about being unified. Yeah, I think that's a huge problem within the fan subbing community. I mean, I know how the leaders of these groups operate, and because I'm in regular contact with them, and it's like literally there's almost minimal communication between the different groups. Like, I mean, look at the feud that like freaking we have with Kami. Like, we can't even talk with them, so we can't like obviously be on the same page as them.
And you have to go through FFF just to even talk to them, don't you?
Yeah, basically, or Vivid.
It's like middle school playground rules.
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of what this is. It's kind of like elementary school, like freaking playground politics. It's like I mean it's kind of dumb in a way. And I mean if we were more unified, obviously we could get more things done. And I think maybe having that meeting, because if you look at the fan sub database, we have 4 groups doing dungeon this season, and literally shows are going unsubbed. And I don't know who the hell thought that was a good idea.
Oh yeah, you said that like nobody was telling anybody what shows that they were doing, and then whenever those shows finally came out, like 4 different groups were doing the same exact show.
Like literally what happened, like normally what happens is that like usually people will post plans like, hey, we're doing these shows, and we're doing these shows, and that's what we're doing. And literally everyone has those plans and they post them, and then and everyone kind of knows, so you can look at, they're doing that show, so that means we don't have to do that show, so you can go do something else. This season, that didn't happen, and some speculation is that that didn't happen because people are waiting for Crunchyroll to announce, because there's Crunchyroll edits, and some groups like doing those, and not original translations. Yeah, translations, because they either don't have the staff or they don't want to wait that long or whatever the reasoning. And basically no one posts the list because they're waiting for Crunchyroll to announce, and they don't announce until shows start airing. So then they have to pick it up on the spot without any plan announcements. And I think that's a problem in the community as well. But it kind of goes back to that unification thing. Like, if people knew what people were doing, even behind the scenes, like, you don't even have to announce it to the public, but even if the leaders knew that, like, what they were doing and communicate with other leaders, I think that would be very helpful. Second point I would like to elaborate on is that, I mean, if you I forgot what my second point was now. I'm not gonna lie, I just completely zapped. It's gone.
While you're thinking about that, I will say that, like, I'm not against legal options. I just want the legal options to be better. And because they're not better, I would prefer to go with something that has quality.
Right.
I mean, but if Crunchyroll and Funimation were to step up their game and they were to make things better, I'm fine with fansubbing becoming irrelevant if it was for the sake of, like, the legal options did actually get better, and then I'd be like, oh yeah, I'll pay you $8 a month to watch anime. That's fine. If I know I'm getting a quality product, I'll pay you for it.
Yeah, and Funimation is especially just, I don't want to say their quality is worse than Crunchyroll's most of the time. Literally, they're more inconsistent than Crunchyroll, I would like to say. For example, I've seen just recently some screenshots of Funimation's show that's airing this season. It's called Kagura, something something. Literally, the latest episode is literally the app. It's literally like, I'm gonna say this, but it's ESL shit. Like it literally is. And not to hate on ESL people, but like, I mean, that's the kind of quality that obviously like these people think that this is good.
Like they
And,
grabbed it and ran it through Google Translate and slapped it on.
Literally, that's literally what I think they did. Like, I'm serious. Like, and this is, I can attest to this because we did a Funi edit last season. It was Junketsu no Maria, and literally, like, we were trying to find, like, because we were doing TLC on it and stuff, like translate checking and trying to figure out Funi's errors. By the way, almost every line was an error. I think it came out to like 75% of the lines had to be changed.
If you were a computer programmer and that happened to you, your boss would just come in and fire you immediately. 400 lines of errors? Get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Just leave.
Yeah, I mean, and like literally, like we translated check it, and then we were like, okay, so how did Funi come up with this? And basically, we ran it through our Japanese kanji dictionary on some website, whatever website we use, and we literally typed in the word. And literally, they just pulled from the first option on the page. Every single time. They did this for like 10 different words, and every time that there was a word, it looked like the first word in the translating site would be the word that they used every single time. And literally, I mean, like literally, this was a consistent thing that happened. And we were like, do they even know what they're doing? Like, I literally think someone just runs all the kanji through a frickin' translating site, and they just make sense of the sentence, and they're like, that's kind of what's going on. All right, that's perfect, cool.
This is like, I think a great example of that was the balloon vine thing, although that was fan subbing.
That was technically fan, but you know that we found out that made slightly sense. But yeah,
what show was that again?
That was Kokoro Connect.
So Kokoro Connect, there's this bad guy in it that the whole thing is that he basically implants something. The metaphor is that he implants something inside of them that like messes with them, and then like basically every week they have to go through something traumatic. And this guy's name is Heartseed because he implants a seed in their heart that grows into this like dark rose that completely affects their relationships with each other. But like the other term for Heartseed, if translated improperly, is balloon vine. And it's just a really bad translation. Like, that's bad. Your main bad guy in the show is not called Heartseed, which actually sounds kind of cool. It's just Balloon Vine. And they did that every time in the most dramatic moments in the show. They were just like, Balloon Vine. And he's like, I'm here. It was amazing.
It's like, no, it's you, Balloon Vine.
I would love, that's great, Zach. I would love if someone actually did that. Like every time he shows up, it just makes it like a sound of a balloon deflating. Every time he takes a step, it just goes. Oh
and
gosh.
I mean that's a prime example of just translator errors that can literally fuck with the show. Like,
yeah, I could not take that guy seriously, even though he was a really fucked up individual.
Why.
I can't.
But yeah, translations matter, and trust me, if you use like literally like this was a great example because like I know our editor complained about this. He's like literally, he's like they would use the same word for happiness in this show. They would use xiaowase, which is happiness or what, like some iteration of that. And literally every time in Funimation's script, every time that word happened, it would be happiness every single time. That's a little bit more of editing, but like happiness. And it's like, are you happy? I'm happy. They're all happy. Everybody's happy. It's just like, and it's like, that's the connotation is technically a little different for some of those lines, but that's just what they went with. And it's like, I don't know why. Maybe, and I assume I'd like to really think that they're not just incompetent. I would like to think that they're just literally being rushed to hell, and they literally cannot check their product, even though they technically should be doing that. I assume that there is like some internal, maybe there's company regulations, because I mean, I have heard of things like timing for some of these Fansubbing group, or not scanlations, simulcasts.
Mhm.
Basically, I've heard of that they have like specific deadlines that you have to follow, or like specific guidelines, not deadlines. But you have basically, even if it's not technically correct, you have to do it this way because that's the way the company tells you to do it.
And you see that with a lot of big business.
And yeah, like maybe that's part of it, but I'd like to just think they're not completely incompetent, but at the same time, I don't think that's acceptable. So.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's like, in jobs that I've done where I've worked for a company that, was a big business and they had specific guidelines that you had to follow, there are situations where it's like, I would like apologize to the customer and I'm like, listen, I'm sorry. There's literally nothing I can do. And like, I'm not allowed to. I could fix this, but I can't. And it feels so shitty and bad. And I talked to my manager about it, and my manager, at least, and it wasn't necessarily company policy, but my manager was like, if it comes down to that, like, if you can find a way to like kind of bend it a little bit, I'm okay with that. And I'm like, you are a cool manager, sir.
Mm-hmm.
But like, that doesn't apply. Like, if that was found out by the company, we'd get fired or something like that. Even if it is like a mild thing of just like giving a customer back their product or something like that. And I know big business really isn't a big fan of that. Like, they have guidelines and you follow the guidelines. And honestly, if they're shitty guidelines, they really need to change.
Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of boils down to another one of Darksage's points. He talks about encoding, the 10-bit thing. He talks about that in the article, and I'll just slightly touch on this because it gets really technical. Basically, 10-bit's a new format it's a newer format. It's more modern, and basically, no big business uses it because A, it's not adaptable, and 2, it's not as easy to do. So, they literally just stick to 8-bit because A, it plays better on the web players, and B, there's no reason for them to try so hard because 8-bit works just fine. And obviously, even though it's technically better, and that's the reason Fansubbers adopted it, I mean, it's just I've lost my point again, but I keep doing that. Like, I don't know what it is today.
These things happen.
But literally, like, I mean, that's obviously why they're using those awful standards, like, and because they're easy and that's the way we've always done it and that's our guidelines, so we're not going to change them even if this is better, because we can't deal with it, or we don't want to fork out the money to get new encoding software or whatever it is. Dude,
I think the wonderful example of this is once again going back to an old job that I had. Our security, and you, as somebody who's going into digital forensics, Matt, you could appreciate this. Our security system was from the fucking 80s. And it blows my mind that you would have a security system that's like 20 to 30 years old. And they're like, yeah, we just don't want to change it because we don't want to have the money for it. And also because like HD quality recording, because they have to save literally every second that the store is open. And whenever it's not open, they have it on the security camera so that they can go back and look at it. And like saving in HD quality, even like 720p, is just it takes up so much space on a hard drive that they're just like, no, we don't want to do that because we don't want to pay for extra hard drives that we just replace.
And from my experience in digital forensics, yes, this is 100% true. You get videos that are 240p, and they're like, hey, can you see who that is in the video? Yeah, sure. Let me just take your 240p video and let's try to make out who that is. We can't enhance that. No, and I'm sorry, but like, even if you have a high-tech system and you're like, let's get 240p because we're trying to save $5 each a day so we don't have to buy a new hard drive. Like, I mean, Like, that's not beneficial. That's awful. That's wrong.
It's that wonderful movie and TV trope of just people going, "Hey, enhance that picture. All right, now change it on the vertical axis and warp the encode." And then it's just like all of a sudden amazingly magic, and there you have your person.
Yeah. Now zoom into that license plate. Now from that license plate, take the reflection that's in the mirror of that license plate. All right, so now we're looking in the side view mirror. All right, now it's panned this direction. All right, so let's change the camera angle and let's enhance that guy that's being reflected in the mirror off this license plate. Got him. We know who it is. Let's go.
And then they just like click and drag his picture over to a database and it matches it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's basically like the same problem here with the difference between 8-bit and 10-bit is that like a lot of companies don't. Well, going back to the example of the video surveillance, a lot of companies don't want to upgrade just because it costs them money, and it's the same thing with 8-bit and 10-bit. Even though 10-bit is now going to be the complete standard from here on out, a lot of people just didn't want to jump on it just because they're like, oh, it costs money. Oh.
It costs them a lot of money, and they're just like, no, let's not do that. And now we're going to be 20 or 25 years behind in video encoding, and then someone will be like, 10-bit's better, and like 30 years from now, they'll start using 10-bit. And like, sorry, like the encoding standard's like 6 times like better than that now. So
and that's why Fansubbing jumped on 10-bit, because they don't have that restriction. Like all of them pay for their own stuff themselves. So they were just like, yeah, we're going to do 10-bit now. And then like they made it it took a little while, but they did make it available to that everybody can actually view 10-bit, because that was a problem for a little bit. But like everybody can see 10-bit now, so we have like a whole bunch of pretty colors on the screen at the same time. Anime actually looks a lot better. When I look at a Kyoto animation thing, it looks gorgeous, and I love them for it.
And you're getting better quality for less file size.
It's really interesting though, because like even though 10-bit is a much more viable option at this point, going back to Darksage's article, he still continues to say that 10-bit is really shitty.
Yeah.
Which is odd.
And like, I don't know why he says that, because I mean,
he also calls it short-sighted stupidity, because Blu-ray was such a short-sighted, stupid thing to do. It's like when new technology comes around and replaces it, that's what happens.
People are like, oh, this is a fucking piece of shit. I'm not going to use that. What? Who cares about Blu-rays? Nobody's going to use those 2 years from now.
And
DVDs are just a fad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
And I mean, that's literally what he's kind of saying, is that like, you know, I don't want to, like, people shouldn't change because, like, you know, like, they shouldn't stay up to date with technology because they don't know how it's going to change. And maybe that's valid in some areas, but, like, at the same time, like, if you don't have the restrictions and you want to give a good quality product, go all in. Like,
yeah, not to mention, 10-bit is a standard. It's not just new technology for new technology's sake. It's a standard that was implemented for all encodes from here on out.
And not only that, and guess what? Like, this is kind of what I don't like about this section, is that he talks like, oh man, they're completely shut out for a long time. No, that's actually completely false, because there are re-encode groups like Deadfish or whatever kind of other spin-offs of, with Xfish, like, that there are. Like, they do 8-bit re-encodes in MP4 format, so Mac and mobile users can play these with the same quality because they're subbed with fan subs as hard subs. So it's literally the exact same thing, except it's hard subbed. And so those people weren't shut out. So that's a lie.
The equivalent of this would be whenever you buy a Blu-ray now, they also give you the DVD just in case all you have is a DVD player. And they've done that for a while, and even though they still do that, don't they? Even though now 10-bit is playable on Mac and mobile devices.
Correct. They still have those re-encodes because some people want to watch it on their tablet or their phone or whatever.
Yeah. So like,
it still happens.
It's kind of dumb to point that out as being a stupid idea when like all the precautions were taken in order to adapt into new stuff.
Literally, it wasn't like that there was like we were shutting people out. It's literally, hey, we're doing this now. Hey, and then like someone's like, there are groups that don't have like, there are people that can't play those, and then there's these other groups stepped in and were like, yeah, we'll take care of it, and then they just do it. Like, I mean, they're like, we'll take your subs and we'll just put them on hard sub video, and it's fine.
Right. So where
And it's
Crunchyroll is now lagging behind once again in the quality, fan subs were able to adapt to the new technology better.
Mhm.
Is basically
Right.
what this long train of thought is going towards.
Yeah, basically. I'd actually like and I know we talked about this a little bit already, but like what do you think about his solutions? Like,
Oh, his solutions? Well, one of the solutions he points out was advertising, and he didn't even say what that meant. He was just like, advertising. You guys should advertise. And it's like, well, how do you want us to do that?
yeah,
Um,
I read that article, that piece, the number one point here, improving group branding, which basically is advertising. And basically, I read this article like 8 times, and I still didn't really understand what he was trying to say. Like, I kind of got it, but I kind of didn't. Like,
It kind of just seems like he's saying, hey, put more watermarks of your fan subgroup in the karaoke section.
Yeah, which, I don't know, I'm not really a big fan of watermarks.
and the funny thing is that this is funny because literally 3 posts back, and this is that level 1. I'm criticizing the author here, but literally 3 posts back, he talks about Funimation, and he's like, you know what I hate every time I watch a horrible subs Funimation a video? You know what I hate? Having to sit through 20 minutes worth or 20 seconds worth of logos. And I'm like, he's like, this is just advertising. Why are they doing this? Meanwhile, 3 posts later, hey, fan subgroups should advertise. And
Yeah.
I mean, obviously he doesn't mean like make 20 seconds worth of logos, because that's fucking stupid. But like it's kind of the same thing though. Like, nobody really wants to see that. Like, that kind of just yeah.
No, I think a better way to advertise, and he once again he was ambiguous, so maybe this is also what he meant. Was a better way to advertise would be to be much more vocal about the positive direction and the quality of fan subs to all the people that don't usually watch fan subs or don't know anything about it. The anime community at large. Because the more and more that you get those people on board, the more and more it's going to hurt your competitor Crunchyroll.
Right.
The question about that is, though, what are the outlets that you're going to use to get these ideas out here? Because it kind of keeps circling back to the whole illegal thing.
Yeah, I mean, let's think about it. We know.
Like,
Sorry, go ahead.
what public outlets are you going to advertise something that is technically illegal?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a bit of a tricky thing. And to be honest, I don't have a good, clean answer for that. It's like you could go to a whole bunch of anime conventions and just advertise for specific groups in some way, shape, or form. You could you go ahead, Matt.
Oh, I was just going to interrupt you real fast. Just basically that was actually tried at a convention because fan subbing panels, and this is probably the reason this fan subbing panel that just happened was interesting. Because most of the time they get denied because they're illegal. So you can't even talk about them at a convention because they're illegal.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is.
It's a tricky situation. It's something where, and I know that we've talked about this, I would like to see fan subbing as a legal thing. Like, you basically do it like construction work, where you bid on a project. In this case, the license, like Crunchyroll Funimation would have a license, and they basically bid on that, and whoever is willing to work on that for the lowest price gets the project. And that would be great, because that means Crunchyroll doesn't even have to worry about translating it. They pass it off to somebody else, that person does it for them, and they put it up. And we also get that thing of quality. But I don't see that happening simply because Crunchyroll would rather keep all their money to themselves. I don't exactly blame them for that either.
From a business standpoint. But,
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
So I honestly couldn't tell you. Obviously, I do have to agree with his general point that there should be some form of advertisement, some way to get more people involved in order to, try and make things for the better. But I honestly don't have an answer. I can tell you though that what he states, like with the watermarking and stuff like that, just is not a good idea.
It's not. I think that the idea is it's even in the best of intentions and in the best implications, it's ineffective. I think it would be not effective at all, actually.
Yeah.
Basically, now you have a logo, and now people, now they have now what most people think is, oh, now there's an annoying logo there. Like, I mean, they'll just be like, and most people probably either A, won't notice it, B, won't pay attention to it, or C, they'll just be like, oh, okay. And then Kyle mentioned this once before as well, that, I mean, it breaks the immersion when you're watching a show and you see, FFF presents.
Right, because it makes it seem more like this is a show that FFF has taken the original of and changed to fit their own. Even if it's like for the better, like Fansubbing, they take it and try to translate it for a quality product. All I'm thinking about whenever I see that is just, oh, so somebody else has touched this, and I don't want to think about that. I just want to think that I'm being delivered the product.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Another thing that kind of goes with the advertising is also something that he stated, because I was thinking about this Yiffy torrents. I love Yiffy torrents, and I've said this before, just because I found them randomly while I was searching around on torrents, and they're like, "Oh yeah, try us out." Oh no, people are messaging me on Skype. How embarrassing. I found them randomly, and whenever I found them, I suddenly realized, oh, it's a quality product for a smaller space on my hard drive, and I'm like, that's fantastic. Because all that was just I found them on a site, and their name was attached to the file. And I think I do agree with one of his points that he puts up here is that, like, we shouldn't put everything on Yeah. Because, in all honesty, if everything goes on Yeah and not any other website, then not many people are going to really know about it. But, like, on top of putting it on Yeah and on top of putting it on their own website, if they also put it on, like, the Pirate Bay or a whole bunch of other places, then you're starting to get your name out there. And just put your name on the file, and in the little description box on like the Pirate Bay, you can put your site on there and just be like, click on this if you want more.
Sure. Right. And I mean, the thing is though, is that like, and that kind of goes with the second point, is improving distro. It's like. He talks about, using Yeah as the only option. And yeah, I understand that, having a consolidated thing may not be the best way, even though
it is a good idea, though.
I think it is a good idea to have a nice hub where you can find everything in Fansubbing, like literally right there. But if you want to, get your name out there, obviously you got to put it in other places. And somebody in our staff chat talked about, why don't we just upload to like Kick-Ass or whatever, and our leader was like, we could do that. He's like, but like literally people already do that for us. He's like, we don't even have to, like, we are not in control of those people, but they already put our stuff in those areas. So it's already happening, but it's not affecting anything. Again.
At the same time, do those people specifically state that this is an FFF translation or something like that? Or do they just put it up stating this is mine and I'm putting it up here?
I mean, I assume that how that works is that they just keep the files with the file names. Like, it's not like I imagine no one's gonna rename like all the files. I mean, there's probably people that already do that like, rename their files and be like, this is mine. Obviously, that happens with everything. But like, I'm sure that there's also instances where it's like they just upload it like just exactly as you download the files. Like they just upload it with the names and everything. And say, hey, this is an anime, and then you download and you see, tags in the file name, like, oh, so it's this group, and then you move on.
So if this is already happening, then obviously it's not helping.
It's obviously not very helpful, even if it's inconsistently done. And I mean, maybe you could make it more consistent, and maybe you could put it out there a little bit. But again, it goes back to the point of, like, I mean, is this really going to help in the grand scheme of things? Like, I mean, if it's already being done minimally, even if you went full, like, even if you went crazy, like, is it really going to help the problems that we're suffering? Like,
Yeah.
I don't really think so. Like,
So
yeah,
once
it's good.
again, his solution seems like a good idea, but it doesn't really work.
Yeah. I mean, granted, they're good ideas, and maybe we should consider some of those. But
Sure.
it's, I mean, most of them are just like, okay, yeah, and that kind of what makes this whole entire article interesting is because, like he talks about, like, and he, I don't know, it's so strange because like this article is so different than all the other articles that he's written because like first off like he never beats around the bush like this. Like I feel like he's being ambiguous in a lot of these statements, and I feel like
Intentionally so?
maybe not intentionally so, but either intentionally or unintentionally, he's making things sound ambiguous, or he's not coming out and just straight up saying the point. He's not being like, hey, this anime is shit and you shouldn't watch it. Like, or, you know, Trigun's a piece of shit and so I didn't like it, you know? Like, he doesn't say things like that in this article. You notice how he, like, just every statement he has, he's like, I mean, he kind of is taking that same, like, really negative approach that he normally does, but it's different.
He's
like,
being ambiguous with it instead of trying to state an actual solution, I guess.
Yeah, he's just like, hey, you should do this, or hey, you should do this. But he's like, he's not really telling us how to do those. He's just saying, you know, like, this is the direction you should go. And like, and he never states how this is going to be helpful. Notice in both of those points, he never says that, hey, this is going to be an improvement over what we have now because this.
Yeah.
He never says that. He just says we need to do this.
So let me ask you this then, so that we can kind of bring it into just a general thing. So he says the article says why fansubbing is irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
Do you let me ask you just on a general statement then? Do you think fansubbing is truly irrelevant?
Well, no, obviously. Let me say this. I personally don't think it is irrelevant. I think saying irrelevant is wrong. I think its relevance is fading, but I don't think it's irrelevant. And this is the funny thing is that like you know how you can be more relevant, and this is a solution that he doesn't talk about. Is that literally there's so many like movies, OVAs, short series, shows that aren't being fan subbed and they're not being touched at all, and people are focused on doing, you know, Crunchyroll edits or Funimation edits or whatever, or even resubbing old anime. Like there's so many other options you can do. Blu-rays, you can focus on something that they aren't doing, and I think be equally as effective. And I think that's the reason why he says it's irrelevant. Because he's like, look at the airing shows. Don't forget that like Crunchyroll still can't get like freaking Bakemonogatari on Crunchyroll, like,
Yeah,
because it was never licensed. So like, I mean, like, it's not irrelevant. It's only irrelevant in the scene of upcoming anime, and only in airing anime on TV. And I think maybe it's irrelevant in that category, but not in other places.
So to be more relevant, it would have to touch on a lot of movies, OVAs, and anime that either were never even touched on by Crunchyroll or Funimation, or a lot of old ones that probably just need to be re-updated with different subs.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Or
So basically just a redistribution or refocusing of the work that these groups do already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's the thing is that like we focus a lot on airing anime, and I think that might not be too bad. But yeah, like we can focus on Blu-rays, OVAs, old anime, movies. There's literally like so many other things we can focus on, and I think our focus is in the wrong area. And yeah, I think maybe in airing anime that are airing weekly, yeah, I think maybe we're fading in irrelevance, and the quality is obviously keeping us afloat. But like, how long can we do that until they
Right.
get better? Like,
It's
What's
like
the
if
better?
the legal options do get better, then the fact that fan subbing has quality fan subs and that's what's keeping them alive right now kind of goes out the window.
yeah. And so you have to either reshift your focus, and that's why I don't understand. Like, we just don't just like, hey, after everything gets done airing, let's do Blu-rays.
Yeah.
Everyone loves Blu-rays, like, and it's not like everyone's gonna rush out and buy the Japanese Blu-rays, or wait
Yeah.
2 years for Funimation to get the Blu-rays. That
Because
may or may
instead
not
of
ever
instead
happen.
of trying to compare like an encoded TV copy to an encoded TV copy, like a Crunchyroll encoded copy to like a fan sub encoded copy, and being like, oh, there's like slight differences, but the quality's much better. It's like with Blu-rays, you can just be like, bam, 1080p, it's beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, that's
So-
that, and yeah, I think that I think to answer your question, yeah, I think it is slightly irrelevant in certain areas.
And that it does need to change, but not in the ways that Dark Sage is saying. But it might need to change. It might need to reevaluate itself, the fan subbing community, and actually start touching on a lot of things that it's not doing now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's definitely something that we should consider.
I think that definitely is something, like, in the long run that would be much better, especially because it is my hope that like legal options do get much better, because I'm totally for doing things legally. I'm not just gonna be like, fight the
Yeah.
man. It's like, if Crunchyroll gets good, fuck yeah, I'll pay $8 a month for his unlimited anime. That sounds fantastic. But I know for a fact that I'm getting a lesser product, and that's the only reason why I'm hesitant to try and anything Crunchyroll.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But if that gets better, then oh yeah, I'll definitely do that, and I hope that it does, because that's when I'll definitely jump on that ship.
Yeah.
But until then, I'm sticking with this. But once again, that does seem like a little bit, as you said, of a I guess short-sighted thing, where it's just like eventually the relevance of fan subbing may change because quality does improve. But until then, you guys are staying afloat. But in the meantime, you might want to do something to try and change things around to become more relevant and have more importance.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I think that basically covers everything that we wanted to talk about, unless there was anything that you guys wanted to talk about.
I don't know. I feel like that went pretty in depth for what we were trying to get accomplished.
I feel like I kind of hit every point I needed to. So
Okay, cool. Well, in that case, these are just going to be every now and then. We're going to do one that's specifically on a singular topic. To everybody out there watching this, so we'll do those every now and then. But then we'll also have regular ones still, where we're going to talk about a plethora of things. So I guess that's it for this one, and I guess we'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.